Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Goals Do Come True with me, Doug Bennett. Today, I am joined by Paul Avins. He's a speaker, coach, investor. He's got loads of stuff. I've been having a trawl through his website. There's some free stuff on there that you can have. And, you know, if you've got a business and you're looking to scale it up, I think Paul's your man, but I'm going to let him tell us a little bit more about that. We were chatting just before the show. Hopefully some of the stuff is going to be picked up and dropped in the middle of the podcast because it was gold. Anyway, Paul, over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your history, about your childhood, actually, because that was quite interesting. But yeah, thanks for coming on board.
Well, thanks for having me on board. It's an exciting conversation to have. And yeah, I think what you're talking about, first of all, is fascinating in terms of the whole goals principle. And I think if I go back through, you go back to childhood, those kind of things, actually, my childhood was really interesting around the whole principle of goals. If I link it into that, I mean, I remember multiple occasions being told that there were certain things that there was no way I was going to be able to achieve them. I remember being at school and, for me, school was always a challenging thing. I wasn't diagnosed until being dyslexic until I was 15. So for me, academically, it was always a tough gig. I jokingly say that I was the strongest kid in the class because I held the other 20 up because I was always number 21. So for me, that was something that just academically didn't work for my brain in the way that was taught. But, I remember having specific objectives and goals during those times. I remember a conversation with a headmaster who said to me once that everybody's good at something, we just got to figure out what you're good at. And that was the first bit of kind of positive reinforcement I'd ever really had at that stage. It turned out for me, it was very much team sports. It was sports that was a thing that I was particularly good at. And that gave me a way to kind of build relationships and express that. And, having goals at that point in my career, whether it was to get to play for the first 11 cricket team or whether it was to hit a century or whether it was, I remember being told very clearly, there's no way you'll end up playing for the first 11 in goal because you're only 5'6", you're never going to be a goalkeeper. And I was like, well, not only am I not only going to be a goalkeeper, I'm going to end up being one of the team that gets the colours at the end of the season, which is an award for top performing players on the team. And it seems, that became a goal for me. And then it was like, right, okay, great. So how hard do I have to train? How much work do I have to put in? I have to outwork the next guy that wants that just as badly as I do. But if I outwork him and I really visualize it and believe it and have that kind of consistent approach, then, I can get there. And I did. And at school very much was told, hey, look, you'll never be able to be, whether it was, because it was academically not as strong, you're not going to end up being a prefect or you're not going to end up being head of combined cadet force that I was big into when I was in school, what was called the CCF. And, I ended up being not just, achieving the goal of, becoming the senior cadet. I actually became in that school, I became the first ever junior officer that they'd ever had. They'd never had a school pupil reach the level of junior officer. And I was the first one to do that, ended up carrying the Union Jack for what was then, I think it was the Queen's 50th event at Wembley Stadium. And there were moments in my career where I just went, if I actually focus, and I love the analogy, if focus stands for follow one course until successful. If you really actually focus and set your mind to it and put that intention out there into the world, that's what I'm gonna achieve. Yeah, then you got to go to work. Then but it's doable, right? I got that reinforcement through my school career, very much of like, look, and it was usually because someone said I couldn't do it. That was usually the catalyst. If someone said, no, there's no way you can do that, that became the, oh really, let me show you then kind of conversation that I would have in my head. But yeah, I mean, for me, goals have played a massive part in my entire career, whether it was, when I first started out in the profession I'm in now, 17 years ago, I was coming out of my 18th year now, but as a business coach consultant, I joined a global franchise for the first 5 years and, set out at the very beginning of that, we were talking about kind of goals that I'd written down. And I actually found, and I don't have a photograph of it, but I have a list of affirmations of who I wanted to be over the next 5 years. I'm this, I'm that, I'm achieving this in my life. And similar to you, I had 12 on that list, and 10 of them happened within the first 3 years in that organization. And one was to, win multiple awards and all those good things, which was done. And then to win the number one coach in the world award, it beat out another 1,000 coaches around the world in terms of results for clients. So, great, set those goals and achievements. I think The biggest thing I learned from that, though, was it's the place that the goals come from. And for me, that was the turning point in my life. Very much large amount of those goals were very much ego driven. They were coming from a place of, who can I impress? How can I show off? And genuinely, and I think, and this was the learning for me, was that a lot of the goals were because I was chasing down validation externally. I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to say I was good at what I did, and ultimately I wanted people to go, yes, Paul, you're worthy, you're a nice person, because I'd struggled with that my whole life because of being adopted. So I was adopted, and that whole kind of wanting to find out why I wasn't good enough and trying to achieve those things drove a lot of that pursuit of goals. And the challenge with that was that it created this interesting kind of trap, which was every time I got the goal, I'd be happy for, in some cases, I remember walking off stage, picking up an award and being happy for about the next 5 minutes, and then going into some dark, deep sort of depression type thing of, yeah, but I've got the goal, and now I've got to go do it again next year if I want to feel like I'm worthy again. And I was running my life like that, which is exhausting, right? It's adrenaline kind of fatigue. It's absolutely exhausting. But a lot of the goals I was chasing up until I got very sick was absolutely driven from an ego standpoint, not from a place of how can I help people, how can I serve people, how can I make a difference in the world. It was very much what can I get, what can I what can I achieve to prove that I'm okay. And I think that's a big thing with goals. If you're doing them for the wrong reason, they can become very toxic. Even if you achieve them, they can become really quite toxic. Because that's what happens, that's what happened to me. Got the goals, but ended up the byproduct of that goal. It's the whole thing of be careful what you wish for. It's like some of the things that I got actually made everything that I had insecurities about or concerns about or worries about, they became worse because of that.
That is interesting. There's a consistency in the interviews that I do with people that a lot of the coaches, a lot of the people that I talk to, they're doing it for the generic good of people. And I think, many of them have moved through and past the what's in it for me, I'm doing it for me sort of stuff. But I think to start with, you have to cut your teeth on the it's for me.
Well, yeah, I got into personal development. So going back to the very beginning of when I got into personal development, which is back when I was 19, I got into that because I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I was attracted to personal development because there was obviously something wrong with me, right? That was the narrative, that was the story that was running in my head. True or otherwise, that was the story. And that led me to the industry to try and learn about me, try and figure out why I was broken, what was wrong with me, all of the story I had at that time. And I think, you go through this industry is really good at playing on that and exploit that a lot to sell courses, to sell coaching, to sell stuff like that, right? It's very good at doing that. But it quickly transferred into, I was fascinated by business. I've been fascinated with business since I was 7 years old. And I jokingly say that I sold my Smurfs to my sister when I was 7. That was the first kind of time I realized, like, hello, a minute, I can make some money doing this. And, I had various kind of, businesses growing up, and I was an award-winning, here's one that'll make you laugh, I was an award-winning paper boy at the age of 16, and, I was fascinated by business. I became really fascinated by, like, why does one business in one industry do really, really well, and why does the similar business in the same industry struggle to make a living, and what is the difference that makes the difference? And it's not the industry, it's not just the tech or the industry, and that's true now more than ever. It's the differentiator is becoming less and less. It's much more about the ability of the leaders to hold a vision, or to, which is it's the business word for goals, isn't it?
Yes.
What's the vision? It's the business word for goals. And then what's the 90-day plan? That's their goals. And what are we trying to do as a team this quarter? And, we're very good, I think, at using terminology around goals when it comes to, whether it's team sports or championships or, F1 or whatever it is, anything you're passionate about, there's always a goal. Who's going to win? And that playing the game that way, I just think generally is the only times most people set goals, in my opinion, if they're not in a coaching program with me, is usually January, right? That's when most people do it, which is, as I always say, it's the worst time of the year to set any kind of goal. For number one, it's dark. You will not tap into the inspirational side of your brain in the dark. That's just not designed for that. Number two, it's cold, wet, miserable if you're in the UK. If you're in other countries, then it's not. But if you are in the UK, then actually, do you know what? You want to get out and you want to go somewhere sunny, warm to set goals, because you're going to feel better about life. You're going to be more optimistic and you're going to have a bigger perspective. And you have to set goals outside your common environment. That's your next big breakthrough goal setting experience will not come while you're sat at the same desk you work at every day. Fact, you just won't. You have to get into an environment that's going to inspire you, that's connected to nature, in my experience is best, and it's going to get you to think bigger, and it's going to give you a sense of possibility, not a reflection and a reminder of all the problems that you currently face on a day-to-day basis. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that isn't talked about with goal setting, is it's the environment you actually choose to do it when you undertake it.
That's cool, and that's how we got together, really, because I'd done my post on LinkedIn on smart goals, and you came in with, well, I've got a different perspective, and it's like, well, I need to have you along then, because we need to find out what this perspective is. And I'm happy to be challenged on the SMART acronym, just because it's the most common one. And it's a good place to start. But when we get past this starting point, and once you start believing in yourself and the woo-woo happens, the law of attraction stuff kicks in, and that we might touch on that, I think. What's the next step then? What's beyond SMART? Were you just touching on it there? I felt that you were probably doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I just like, so for example, in one of our programs, we take people to Spain for 4 days. It's a really deep dive, intense program. Over my career, I've realized that my job is to help businesses, you very kind in your intro, not just scale, but actually get to an exit point. We were talking about this earlier, is that most businesses, if you just run the business, you can make a lifestyle, you can make a living. But if you actually want to create any kind of generational wealth, or you want to create wealth that's going to give you, time and money freedom, which is what most people get into a business for in the first place, then at some point you've got to have an exit event or a capital event or a liquidity event. There are a number of different names for it, right? But that's a goal in itself. It's like to actually build the business, to go, I'm going to build my business to this point where it's worth the shareholder value that is worth this, and then I'm going to sell it for that. I'm going to get out, right? And I often talk about the reason that most people get really stressed out and burnt out running businesses is because they don't have a get out date. Or I just laughingly say you don't have God in your life because you haven't got a get out date. You don't know when you get out of this thing, and then you end up feeling like you're a hostage. And that's because the business holds you hostage because you don't know when you're going to escape. And it's like, well, if you knew you only had 3 to 5 years to get it done and then you were out, you can tolerate stuff for short periods of time if you know it's going to end. What messes people up is when you don't know it's going to end. And that's the same true without goals. It's like there's no end to it. And then it just feels like you're absolutely on a hamster wheel and completely and utterly trapped. And that's, for me, if I'm looking at, say, SMART goals with a business, I'll always go, and I know the traditional model, but I've just created one that works within the world I operate in, which is, number one is like, what the hell are we trying to do? Like, what are we actually trying to do right now? What's the strategy here that we're actually trying to put together? And it's for me, it's the thing that underpins everything. It's a bit like it is the roadmap, and the time you need the map is before you get lost. It's exactly like that. It's like, well, where are we trying to go? What's the destination? Where are we now? What are the obstacles we're likely to face? What does that look like? Are we trying to build for acquisition? Are we trying to build for a trade sale? Are we trying to build to sell it to the team? Are we wanting to build for lifestyle? That's cool too, by the way, but you've got to be really clear on what the strategy is, or you get absolutely caught out by just getting sucked into doing what everyone else is doing. And then one day you wake up and realize that you haven't created any value at the end of that journey that you can monetize. And that's the scary thing. Is like, I don't want people to go 10 years down the road working really hard running a business to try and sell it and realize that they didn't create any value along the way. They created income, but they didn't create value. And there's a massive difference between the two. And unfortunately, most people don't find that out until they try to sell the very thing they've been running for 10 or 15 years. So the key thing is, understanding what is the value you're trying to create and who's going to pay for that value at the end of the journey. But so for me, it's like, okay, yes, you've got to get specific, and I get that, but you've also got to have an element of strategy in this. Like, what are you trying to do strategically? What's the strategy goal here, right? Is it to buy market share? Is it to acquire customers? Is it to build a great brand that somebody else wants to buy? You've got to get some clarity around that. I always say that for me, the second one is smart, SM. The M, it's got to be motivated, right? It's got to motivate you. It's not going to get you up in the, if the goals, if your goal is to, let's just say, I don't know, like if there's a goal that you've got, which is to get fit, but it doesn't interest you, it doesn't motivate you at all. It doesn't matter how measurable it is, you're never going to do it. It's like if it doesn't wake you up in the morning and you're not excited to chase it down, it's like, well, what's the point? It's like, it's got to have an element of, it's got to motivate you, right? Because it's going to be difficult. It's going to require change. It's going to be hard at times. There's going to be people who are going to tell you you're crazy for trying and you shouldn't do it anyway. So there's got to be that level of, kind of motivation around it, right? Well, why are we doing it?
Yeah, absolutely right there.
And I think the A for me is it's got to have clear actions that you can take. It's great to have a goal, but if it's not, everybody I work with has a clear 90-day plan. I said the other day that if you can't write it down, you can't do it, which I think is totally true. If you can't take it out of your mind where it's a concept and put it onto paper where it starts, that's the first journey in making it real. It's the first journey in the manifestation process, is to take it from your mind into the real world and put that on a piece of paper. And so many clients I've talked to, and I don't know if it's true for you, but people listening to this, you have an idea, and what you don't realize is the idea that when you have it, so do 10 other people, 50, 100 other people all at the same time, because we're all getting the same input, right, from the universe at the same time. And the universe goes, I want this thing created in the world, so I'm going to give it to about 50 people, and one of them's going to get around to getting it done. And so suddenly when you get that idea, it's like, ideas are perishable. This is the thing I teach, ideas are perishable. So like, if you don't do something with it really quickly, then somebody else is going to do something with it, because that's how it works. So it's like, we've all had ideas where we suddenly don't do anything, and 3 years later we see someone who's built a really successful company or brand, or they've launched a business that we had an idea for and it's going great, and you sit there and go, well, I had the idea for that 3 years ago. Yeah, you did, but so did they. And the difference is that they actually did it and you didn't, and that's the variable. And it's like, it's not the idea. People think ideas are where income comes from. It's not. Execution and action is where income comes from. It's not ideas. You need the idea, but actually that doesn't translate into any kind of income unless you've got a plan, i.e. a strategy. You've got, you're motivated to go do it, and then you take action on a consistent basis. It's like, and that's, and this will, I'm always kind of, consistency is the biggest thing I've really learned in the last couple of years about goal chasing, right? Like any kind of chase down goals, you've got to ask yourself the question is like, where in my life am I not being consistent and congruent with what I'm saying I want? Yes. It's like, because if you say, well, I want to get really fit, I want to get down to 10% body fat, and okay, great. And then you go, well, I drink every Friday night, I drink every Saturday, and I don't watch my nutrition, and I work out when I feel like it, maybe once or twice a week. Well, then your goal, you're not either lying to yourself about your goal, or B, you're not committed and consistent, because you're not, that's the difference, right? Is you have to be consistent. And that's the variable, and most people can't, and most people don't, and most people won't, right? It's like they won't be consistent. They get bored because they can't handle the delay between the lag time between when they do the work and when they get the result.
Yes.
So that's the gap. That's the mindset gap. It's that can you live in the delay between when you do the work and when you get the reward? Yes. And most people can't, right? It takes it, and what you don't, when you realize this was a big thing for me. When I realized, and I learned this from Oprah Winfrey's Law of Attraction coach, a gentleman by the name of Michael Lozier, who flew over here and we had him speak at one of our events. And he said to me, Paul, you've got to realize that the delay is actually built in for your benefit. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He said, well, think about it. He said, if there was no delay between when you thought about something and took the first actions and got the result, he said, every negative thought you ever had would manifest just as fast as every positive thought. And I was like, oh, that's a very good point. Hadn't thought. And he said, so there has to be a delay switch built in by the universe to give you chance to go, whoa, hang on a minute. No, I didn't.
This one's going the wrong way. This one's going the wrong way. Yeah.
Because otherwise, every bad thought you had, like, I really hope John doesn't crash the car. Crash. It would be instant, right? Like it would terrify us. And it's like, yeah, you're allowed to have thoughts, but you're also allowed to stop the thoughts, and that's the delay switch. Just like when you have a positive thought of, right, okay, great, I see a goal, I visualize that, yep, on it. But then there's a period of manifestation that takes time. It takes time for, with the great Bob Proctor, sadly passed away.
Passed away recently.
Yeah, but the great Bob Proctor used to say this all the time. So you say, you're on a level of vibration, and the thing you want, the goal you want, is on a different level of vibration. Your job isn't to pull the goal to you. The job is for you to vibrate at a high enough level to bring that into your life. And that's a question of how do you need to change? How do you need to refine what you're doing? How do you need to change what you're doing? How do you need to evolve what you're doing? How do you become a person that would attract that into their life? Whether it's a person, a business opportunity, customer, you want certain types of customers, guarantee you this. If you cut out 10 logos of 10 businesses you want to start doing business with and stick them in front of you, like these are the 10 companies I want to deal with in the next 5 years, and start looking at them every day and following them on LinkedIn and start commenting on their posts and start following the brand, like engaging with them and going to events where they are, and suddenly guess what will happen? Within 5 years you'll be doing business with all those brands, and you'll sit there and go, that was amazing, how did that all happen? Because you start with the intention, you start with that, and then you take that consistent action on, that's the key for me. Is like most people just don't take consistent action, right? It's like if I don't get it immediately, I'm not going to persist with it.
No, that's it. That's absolutely nailed it. It is that action and the law of attraction.
But the law of attraction, if you look at the word attraction, what does the word attraction have at the end of it? The word action.
Yes.
Right? It's actually built into the word attraction. A-W-T-R-A-C-T-I-O-N. A-C-T-I-O-N. Attraction has the word action built into it. Well, by definition, right?
Yeah,
just like the word.
I hadn't seen that. And now, wow. Yes, thank you.
Well, here's the other one. Right? So if you look at the word don't quit, you might have seen this before, but if you look at the word don't quit, it has the word do it inside it.
Right, yes.
Don't quit, just do it, right? Just don't quit. And it's like, the whole thing of like all the results we ever need are hiding in plain sight. All the words, the language that we use, there are clues about how to get stuff in it. Attraction, take action. It's like words are hidden inside other words. Like trust is all about us. The word us is in the middle of trust. It's like you start to look at language. I get fascinated by language and go, oh, that's really interesting, because it's what really connects us to. The words we use connect us to the goals we want and how you talk about it. So like, I'm a big person about one of the things you want to watch is your energy, right? Your energy is one of the most important things in terms of achieving goals. If you've got great energy, stuff will get attracted to you and you won't realize why. And if you understand how the law of the universe works, your job is to give value out. And this is the other thing it took me years to realize. So if you have a goal, let's just say your goal is to build £1 million business, right? Your goal is to go out and add so much value in the world that you attract clients who pay for the results that you get, right? If I help a client build a 7-figure business in 3 years and exit for 1.2, 1.3 million, that's going to change their life. Is there a large compensation going to flow back to me for doing that? Yes, because I'm going to change their life by doing that. So therefore, my return on that transformation for them, that change, is going to be significant, right? It's work because I'm contributing a huge amount of value. If I save them 10 years of trying to do it and do it in 3, I've saved them 7 years of their life. That's a huge amount of value I've created for them. So that value will then flow back to me. But here's the thing. Sometimes we expect the value to flow back to the person we're having an interaction with, and it doesn't, because they don't buy from us, or we're adding a load of value to somebody and then they go and buy from somebody else. And we get really upset because we go, well, I worked really hard, I added loads of value to them, and now you drop out of this vibrational space where you go, hang on a minute, that's not my job. My job is to add value and serve people and make a difference. And if they choose to make a decision to buy from me or not, that's on them, right? But then if they don't, guess what? If you've added lots of value, the money flows in, because then what will happen is, and it happens to me all the time and clients all the time, suddenly you get a referral from someone you've never met. And you get a referral come in and they go, oh, we'd be looking for what you do. Can you help us out with this? And, I own a digital marketing agency, and suddenly we'll get a referral out of nowhere. And we'll go, that's really interesting, because the amount we just charged them is the amount we would have charged the person who said no, that we added loads of value to. Yeah, because the universe has to balance the books. So it's like, so many times when we get obsessed with how we think we should get to the goal, we get trapped, because the universe might know a way that's way quicker than you know, right? And if you don't trust it, it's never going to happen for you, is it? Why are you trying to? It's like somebody saying, "Excuse me, there's a shortcut over here. If you go down this way, I'll save you 3 years of your life." And you go, "No, I've got my plan. It's definitely going to happen this way." And you're like, "Yeah, but look, I have. It's going. Look, if you this way, just turn this way, will you? You know, it's like, and so many of us are getting frustrated because actually what we're doing is we're not trusting. We're not trusting us, and we're not trusting the process, and we're desperately trying to control the process, not trust the process. And that's, I think, why people get stuck, is because, you know, I've felt this many times in my life. Is I've not written it down because if I write it down, I get scared that then if it doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed. You know, that whole part of like if I write it down, I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. Yeah, but like if you wrote it down and it's like how many symphonies did Beethoven do? I don't know. It's like it's like 100 or something ridiculous, right? But then you have to write 100 to have 5 mega hits or something. Yes. It's like how many tracks of Coldplay written for the ones that are massive hits? There's a ratio game at play here. Not everything you write down will always happen, but if you write enough down, enough of them that will change your life. And it's like we have to be okay with that. There's an element of that in goal setting that says. And by the way, not everything's designed to happen because you find a better solution along the way, or you find a better goal, or you change your priorities, or stuff shifts, right?
So this is such good stuff. I'm loving this, Paul. I'm loving your energy as well. And you said it in your, you know, your comments there. It's like you've got to have the energy. You've got to bring the energy to the situation. You've got to vibrate at the rate at which we want to attract stuff. So this is this is lovely stuff.
By your energy. So like I get really not upset, but I get really frustrated with people with the language that they use because they don't realize how much they're hurting their chances of success. So you say, like, give you some examples of just right to see if this is you, stop it. just stop it, right? But like people say, how are you? And they go, not bad. And I'm like, why would you use 2 double negative words to describe how you're feeling? Like, what if you just said out loud to yourself about yourself, you're not bad? Well, firstly, the subconscious doesn't understand the word don't, not, can't, won't, right? It doesn't process those. So you've just told the entire universe, including your brain and your subconscious, that you're quite bad. Now, energetically, that's not a healthy thing to put out at all. And I'm not saying you're going to lie about how you're feeling. You know, I remember the great, you know, one of my mentors years ago, he said, if people ask you how you are, Paul, and you're not in a good state, just say, I'm unbelievable, because it covers it either way. So it's like, you're fine. How is your house after this? Oh, I'm unbelievable at the moment. It's amazing. Right? It's like, but like, if you got to act as though you're excited about your life, even if you're not right now, because like, that has to be the energy and intention, because you're on a journey to being excited about your life. Like, look, you know, I get it. Listen, there's been, when I lost a business at 31 that had made me 7 figures, very, you know, I was very successful, very young, which is great and bad all at the same time, because you don't know what you're doing and you spend stupid amounts of money and you don't have financial advice and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I blew a large amount of that money ridiculously on crazy stuff, right? But like when I got divorced and I had to move back in with my parents at the age of 32, having, you know, had what most people would consider a fairly successful career up to that point. You know, I had the cars, the houses, stuff like that. I had to sell it all and move back in with my parents. And you go, that's a hard place to be motivated from.
Yes.
I get it. It is. Yeah. It is. I had a massive pity party, huge one, right? It went on for months, right? And then, you know, and I remember listening to Jim Rohn's saying the challenge with pity parties is that not many people come to them. Point 1. And 2, if they do, they never bring wine or cheese. So it's a really dull affair. And I was like, oh, no. And my dad came in and said to me, listen, Paul, he said, you've been in your bedroom moping around for like 2 months. He said, enough is enough. He said, I'm going to start charging you rent. So get out, figure out what you're going to do with your life, but do something. But you cannot just sit in this room and complain about it. And he was dead right. And it was like, it wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was definitely what I needed to hear. And I think sometimes we need people around us who are going to tell us the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, who are going to say, listen, and you know, this is another thing I'm really passionate about. Is like, be careful who you tell your goals to. Yes. Because, you know, you got to be very careful who you tell your goals to, because there are certain people that, do you know what, they're not ready to hear your goals because they aren't ready to hear your goals for their own reasons. Nothing to do with you. It's just your commitment to a goal is going to make them uncomfortable. And there are certain people that you don't want to share it with. All right. Now, there are certain people in my family I will always tell certain goals to, because they're going to be really annoying and go, oh, how are you doing on that one? And that actually motivates the hell out of me. So You know, there's certain people, if I don't want to let myself off the hook, I will tell I'm going to do something about, and then they just spend their entire life whenever I see them go, oh, how's that one going then? And I'm like, yeah, you just wait, right? It just listen.
It's happening. You just need to be patient.
Yeah, give me a time. There's a time lag. There's a thing called time lag, right? Between when I start on this stuff and when it shows up. And might be a year, might be 2 years, but eventually when it happens, and then
you'll know about
me,
it.
Yeah.
You'll know about it.
And then you'll just call me lucky, won't you? You'll just go, oh, you're just lucky, right? Which, you know, okay, whatever. But then that's the story you need to tell yourself to feel good about yourself. Then that's cool. But and the other one that drives me crazy is where people just all the time just keep saying this all the time. It's like, no worries. And like, I've got lots of friends in Australia. That's fine. But no worries is two very negative words to keep going around telling everybody, because all they're going to hear is worry, because they don't understand the no. So we're going around basically saying to people, no, just worry all the time. And we're wondering, it's like, stop being a doom merchant unintentionally, will you? Please. It's not healthy.
I like that a lot. I do like that a lot. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. There's some things that we need to lose from our
vocabulary.
Yes.
It's not like we haven't got other words, is it?
No.
You can say, how are you doing today? Yeah, I'm doing all right, thanks. Like, just say that, I'm doing all right, thanks. Or, do you know what? I'm getting better today. Today's a better day than yesterday. Tomorrow will be better than that. You know, I like messing around with people's heads. Like, if it's a Friday and someone rings me and they go, how are you? I go, do you know what? If I was any better, I'd be twins about now.
Yeah,
be like,
that's going to throw them. Yeah. What is he talking about? What on earth? Yes. No,
you have to have some fun with this stuff.
Yes.
You know, like,
yes.
It's great, you know, because I think if you look at the R in SMART, right, and I think this is something that isn't talked about enough in goal setting, right, which is, you know, we talk about they've got to be it's got to be relevant, but actually, do you know what? The R for me is you've got to be resilient. If you're going to go out and achieve your goals, you've got to be resilient, because you're going to need to take hits. Stuff's not going to go your way. Things you thought were going to happen aren't going to happen. People are going to let you down. People are going to do stupid stuff. People are going to, you know, that's going to happen. Right? Because if you're doing something worthwhile in the world and you're moving forward and you're making a difference and you're chasing your goals down, other people are going to get to be made up to feel uncomfortable by you doing something they wish they could or they should have done. And therefore, you're going to need to be resilient about it. You're going to need to be able to keep going. There's a great quote, and I keep forgetting who's by, but and my wife has in the kitchen wall. It says, enthusiasm is easy, endurance is hard. And it's so true. So anyone can get fired up in the minute, right? But can you keep going when it's really brutally tough? Like, how many people stick at a gym, you know, after the first 5 weeks of the year? It's like, if you can't be resilient enough to keep going when it's really tough, then you don't really want the goal. And and this has happened in my life a lot, where I don't know if you've had this experience where you get somewhere and you think you're getting somewhere, and then you'll get massively thrown a challenge to overcome to see if you're serious about the goal you want. It's like, well, we're just going to find out if you're really kind of mildly interested in this or whether you really want to achieve it. And then, you know, the universe will give you some whacking great big challenge to deal with that you hadn't seen coming. And then you go, oh, crap. But when you get the other side of it, it's like suddenly like it's like, oh, well, now I've done that.
Yeah.
Almost overnight. But you have to go through that to become the person that was going to be able to handle the success you say you wanted, right? And it's that I think that resilient is such an important skill set in achieving goals. You have to be able to be resilient, because it's not easy, right? If they're decent goals, there's stuff that's going to stretch you, you know. And I talk about the growth zone, the comfort zone, and the comfort zone, the growth zone, the shock zone, right? And the shock zone is the stuff where you'll quit on whatever you're chasing down if it's too intense. But you got to have that ability to be patient and persistent, you know. And I remember, you know, when I was chasing down a specific goal, and my wife ended up having severe brain hemorrhage and getting rushed into hospital. And normally, just after you set some kind of real goal you're excited about, something will come along and challenge you, right? Some team member will resign, or, you know, some big customer of yours will say, we're not buying from you anymore. The minute, you know, and you're like, really? And yeah, but it's like
right now, why are you doing that to me now? I don't need this now.
That's not what I wanted. What I wanted was some support from the universe, and the universe is going, yeah, but this is support, because actually you need to get stronger in this area, or you need to develop. And, you know, my wife was in a coma for 21 days, and I'm like, okay, that I had a goal to, I was trying to hit a record quarter target and going for all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, that wasn't part of the plan. No part of the plan was that would happen. And like, you can get bitter or you can get better. And this is a big thing I learned. It's like, stuff's going to happen to you and you can get bitter or you can get better. And I went, yeah, we have a rule in my company, which is you're allowed to be down for 24 hours, but that's it. You can have a pity party now. You're allowed a day, you're feeling sorry for yourself and all the rest of this stuff. But that's after that, game over. Same thing.
You get on with it.
Yeah, but you can have a massive day too. You can have a real big thing where you crush a goal and stuff's spectacular and you can celebrate and all this stuff, high five. But that's for 24 hours, so your ego doesn't get out of control. And then we get back to work. It's like, right, how are we going to serve people this after that? How are we going to, yes, celebrate, but then we get back to work. And it just keeps us in check, keeps us in balance. And when my wife went in and was, out of nowhere, had this brain hemorrhage and then is in a coma and they're telling me she's going to be in rehab for 6 months. And this I'll share this story because there's multiple points in this about goal setting, right? So the doctor said to me, 6 months. She'll be in coma for 21 days and then rehab for 6 months. And I was like, no. And he was like, what? And I said, look, I appreciate your opinion and you're entitled to it, but she's coming home for Christmas. And he looked at me and he went, that's 3 months away. And I went, I know. And he said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, I haven't got a clue. But I'm telling you right here, right now, she comes home for Christmas. And he said, well, I think you're being ridiculous. And I'm, as a medical professional, I'm telling you that just doesn't happen. Her kind of injury takes 6 months. And I was like, okay, I get that. But if I buy that, I'm giving her that sentence regardless. And I don't choose to buy that, right? I choose to believe that it's possible. I don't know how, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't know what I can control. But I do know that there's a possibility here that, do you know what? I can control something. I can't control everything. I absolutely can't. There's loads in this situation I can't control, but there are things that I can control. It's where I started using a phrase called control the controllables. Because the biggest thing in your life is that when you realize you've got to control the things you can control and let go of anything you can't. Anything. And I was like, look, I can't control her body. I can't control what the doctors give her drugs wise. So what can I control? Well, I can control my energy. I can show up every night, be there for her every night. I started sticking all around the hospital. She was in her own private room at the time because of her serious nature. I stuck photographs of holiday destinations we said we wanted to go to. I stuck affirmations all over the wall. I had a graphic designer of mine create amazing posters of like movies of the family doing stuff and big affirmations going, why is my brain so healthy and fit? Why am I healing so quickly? Why is my body on my side? Right, all of this kind of like positive affirmation. I would take positive affirmation sort of like tapes or CDs back in the day that I, like of healthy affirmations for her, because your subconscious brain is always paying attention, right? Even if your conscious brain isn't, your subconscious is. And so I had that going on whenever I was going in, and I think I play it on my iPhone if I remember rightly, but like the doctors weren't around and I would play this stuff and I would just come in and talk to her every night about, hey, look, how great is it your brain's done even better today? You're just on the road to recover. It's going to be great to have you home for Christmas. And then I would go home and I would reach out to people. I reached out to like remote Reiki healers and various other things that I had done, kinesiology remotely. Anything I could basically do to help her remotely, I was going to do. And then about 6 weeks in, she was out of the coma, and at that point, she could barely remember my name. She couldn't remember Jonathan, our son's name. But I kept staying my belief. I believed it even before, I believed it before I could see it. And I was like, I have to hold that space of faith that it's going to show up, right? That, and I have to be resilient when every part of me doesn't know whether it's going to come off or not. But I have to hold that moment of that faith. That's my job. I have to be resilient. I have to have the strength to stand in that space and go, this is going to happen somehow, somewhere. So however, it's going to happen. And if we miss it and she's out in 4 months, not 6, it's still a win, right? Yeah. It's still a win. And, and what was the amazing thing was that we were able to get her home for a weekend visit and then another weekend visit. And on the 18th of December, she came home for good. And the doctor said to me, I don't understand how that happened. That's just, there's no real, there's no explanation for that. That should not be possible with what happened to her brain. And that shouldn't have happened. And I was like,
you just said Don't worry about it, mate.
I just said, well, listen, I was grateful. I came from a place of gratitude. I was like really grateful for everything the hospital had done and all the care, because that was a component I couldn't control. But I was like, listen, this was a team effort. It was you, me, the universe, lots of people outside of here who were helping that you don't know anything about, and lots of things that I did that you thought were crazy. And I'm just going to say, listen, all that matters is she's home for Christmas, and that's the win. But it was a team effort. But whether you choose to believe that or not is entirely up to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm a great believer that those things, you can achieve insane stuff, but you have to be prepared to stand in the space where it's really uncomfortable, and that takes a level of resilience to keep yourself going, let alone anybody else going.
And now we need the T.
Oh yeah, trackable. It's got to be trackable, right? Stuff's got to be trackable. You got to be able to track progress. So the biggest reason most people running businesses feel stressed out is because they focus their entire energy on problems, not progress. And I think if anything, in any area of your life, whether you're employed by people, whether you work for a company, if you're able to demonstrate positive progress, if you're able to demonstrate progress towards your strategic goal or your specific objective, whatever it is for you, if you're able to track stuff and see progress, then your level of motivation goes up. So like the trackable feeds back into your motivation. If you're motivated, you take more action. That means you get stronger. If you take action, it's like going to the gym, you become more resilient because you're taking consistent action. And if you track progress, you stay more, that becomes like a virtuous circle that just builds on each other. And I keep a daily wins log every day of like, what's 3 things that went really great today? Like what's 3 positives that we pulled off today? And no matter how many, and listen, it happens to me. We have bad days. Of course, stuff goes wrong. Things happen. It's business. It's life. It's business. Stuff happens. But if you're able to keep a log of 3 things that you did well today, or the team did, or I did well, the team did well. My wife and I just posted about this. My wife and I go out for a monthly review lunch, breakfast rather, once a month. And we always go through, right, in the last month as a family, what's been really good? What have been the positive things that we've done? Like, how have we supported each other as a family? What's been great? What have we learned? How can we get better as a family? But it's like, if you're not tracking stuff, it's very difficult to feel that you're making progress. And progress is one of the best positive energy generators out there, right? Whereas most people focus on all the problems all the time, and that just kills your energy.
What can I say, Paul?
Yes.
there was so much in there. We've got a different take on the SMART acronym. Quickly, just run the words off as they are.
So for me, because I work in the business world, so it's strategic, motivational. So they're very much actionable, right? Resilient and trackable. You need an element of resilient in you if you're going to chase your goals. Then there has to be an element of resilience in there, and trackable.
And ordinarily, I'd ask my guest for a nugget, but we've had hundreds of them, today. So I'm going to bring this episode to a close. Paul, I've got to thank you. There's so much good stuff in there. How can people get hold of you? If they want to find out, I know there's a little bit of free stuff on your website. If you just want to share your website address, or the best thing that they can do to start the journey with you.
Best thing they can do to start the journey with me? Well, actually, let me give you 2 things, right? So yes, I'll come back in circle with one thing I think you could sit down and do, right? So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm at Paul Avins, PAULAVINS, and that's really easy to find. And then my website is just paulavins.com, one of the 4 companies that I own, but everything about me is pretty much on there. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, I post content of value every day. I'm always teaching every day on that. So for me, I think if you listen and you've enjoyed this episode, there's one thing that I think would be really awesome that would help both yourself and help you as well, right? Because I massively believe in the power of goals, big time. Is number 1, share the episode on social with other people. So share this episode, because that's my mission is to help 10 million people to find their talent, tap their talent and find their flow and go on and achieve more in their life. And that's part of my mission. And that's more people than I can ever physically interact with. But so just share the episode, share it with other people, tag me in, tell me your top takeaway from this. That'd be awesome, because I love to hear people's top takeaways on this. So tag me and share it, tag me in on social, love to hear that. And then for me, it would be like, take the next 24 hours to sit down and go, right, if I knew I couldn't fail, if I was guaranteed, if we were sitting in here and we were having this conversation 3 years from now, and I guaranteed that whatever you wrote down on a piece of paper would happen in your life or your business, what would you write down? If it was that, if I could guarantee you that you would have achieved that in the next 3 to 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, but in that kind of time frame, if you had that dream come true, what would that dream look like? Get it out of your head. I talk about, one of my mentors taught me years ago, ink it, think it, do it, review it. Ink it and get it out of your head, get it written down, then start focusing on it, and then get out there and take the action. And if there's some way I can support you on that journey, I can add some value to you on that journey, then please reach out, get in touch. I'm happy to help. But like, if nothing else, just sit down and go, right, if there's one thing that I could get done in my life that would have the biggest profound effect for me, my family in the next 3 years, what would that one thing be? And then set to work on that, and don't quit until you've done it. Just don't quit until you've done it. If that's the biggest thing in your life, make the number one thing the number one thing.
And there we have it, folks. Paul, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's been fabulous.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And look forward to having you back on my show at some point.
Definitely.